Bruce Feldman of The Athletic. He'll be covering the Rose Bowl matchup for The Athletic. Written about a lot of interesting stuff these days. He's their guy on college football. Let's start with a game that is fascinating because usually in college football, we get a sense early. The USC teams, the Burrow LSU team, the great Alabama teams, Georgia. You're like, that's the best team. This year, it's felt like a lot of Michigan. I've never felt that about Alabama, but yet everybody I talk to likes Alabama over Michigan because of the improvement of the quarterback. And I keep saying, yeah, but when you look at college football natties, you kind of sense by week 4 that team's different. But is Michigan vulnerable here?
Well, I definitely think they're vulnerable. But the thing to keep in mind, and I talked to all these coaches who played both teams, this point spread is saying Michigan still. And everybody else is saying, oh, yeah, it's like they talk about it like Alabama should be a 10-point favorite. I think a lot of that has to do with the last impression. They saw them at their best against Georgia. And look, they match up better against Georgia than most teams because that's the same, basically tree that Nick Saban and Kirby Smart are tied to.
And Georgia was banged up a little.
They were, and I thought you saw this is the best their offensive line for Alabama had played. But the other side of it, Michigan, you have J.J. McCarthy, who looked really good in the beginning of the year. He was banged up from the Penn State game on, and I think you saw them play the best defenses, best ranked defenses in the country, whether it was Penn State number 1, then Iowa in the Big Ten title game. Certainly Ohio State has a good defense. So I think a lot of that kind of factored into it. What people probably didn't watch, they may have seen the Georgia game for Alabama. They probably didn't watch the week before when Auburn ran for 250 yards and had them on the ropes.
Should have won.
Should have won that game, right? And so I definitely think this is a talented and really deep Michigan team. They're really good. I don't know if they have any big stars. Blake Corum is a terrific running back.
They're not going to beat you over the top much.
And they're not, they really don't even try. Now, Colston Loveland is a weapon. He is a tight end mismatch problem. Roman Wilson's a really good receiver. But on the other side of the ball, on the other side of the field, it's not like you have a really dynamic quarterback, but there's no Devontae Smith or anything close to that at Alabama. There's no Derrick Henry or Mark Ingram on this Alabama team. They're really riding with, Tommy Rees, the offense coordinator, has done a really good job with Jalen Milroe, highlighting what he does and pulling back the things he doesn't do well. I mean, this is going to be an in-the-trenches game, though.
So I've seen Washington live. They are about as well coached as any team in the country. It's very McVay-like. A lot of movement, a lot of motion, NFL receivers, O-line's got pros, and Texas has better players, but Texas has a huge issue on their perimeter defense. This has upset written all over. I also feel historically, and I love Sark, historically, you get a veteran coach in there in these bowl games, a Lou Holtz and Urban Meyer. This is a Chris Peterson. Like that extra 3 or 4 weeks, they can bring out all sorts of tricks. I think I like Texas. Would not be shocked at all if Washington won.
All those things I would agree with. The challenge, I think, and this is from talking to coaches in the Pac-12 who were, some line coaches who were very blunt about it. You don't see a dominant interior defensive lineman in this league.
And now, Texas has 2 of them.
Yeah, UCLA had the best defensive line, and Latu, their edge rusher, was a problem for everybody. But they were not elite in the middle of the defensive line. Nobody was. Texas has Byron Murphy, and Devondre Sweat is a 360-pound monster.
He's a first-round guy.
Yeah, and as good as the tackles are at Washington, and they're considered the 2 best tackles in the Pac-12, inside, they're a little small. They have a young center who's a good athlete and a good player. How well will they hold up? Will they be able to get pressure on Michael Penix? Because as you said, the receivers are so good, and they take shots downfield.
A lot.
More than anybody.
Yes.
And those are can be slow developing plays. So will they be able to get the pressure? Will that be a difference maker for Texas?
Yeah, this is in history of the playoff. I feel like these are the 4 best teams. I thought Oregon was, and then Washington disproved it. But I feel like I think I would be a little surprised if Washington won a national title. And then I think to myself, 2 pro tackles, 3 pro receivers, pro quarterback, great coach. No, I wouldn't. Washington's defense is situationally pretty good, but it's not overall great. This, to me, we're going to a 12-team playoff. And when Florida State got left out, my overarching feeling was the committee said, hey, we don't have to worry about next year argument. We're going to a 12-team playoff. And for a lot of different reasons, I think they just said, this is our final one. Let's just put the 4 best teams in. Were you ever bothered by Florida State being left out?
I was, from this standpoint. The games have to matter. They were 13-0 in a Power 5 conference. They played 2 SEC teams who are normally really good. They did the best job. Defensively, I think they were really good.
Yeah,
they did the best job of anybody against the Heisman Trophy winner. That game was 45-17 with a minute left.
Yeah.
45-17. They were blowing them off the field. It's not their fault Florida isn't very good right now. So they scheduled those games. They won all those games. The committee hung on to, well, the third-string quarterback didn't look very good against Louisville. All right? He probably wasn't going to start in the playoff anyway. Now, people are going to say, okay, they're going to probably get blown out by Georgia. Most of the players that they have are not playing in that game because they've already opted out. Keon Coleman, the best receiver, Jared Verse, the best defensive player, their top running back. Those guys have all already opted out. And I get why, because the committee has basically said to them, you know what, you went 13-0, it doesn't matter. The games, I still think in college football, always had to matter. Now, they don't matter as much as, well, what we think. I'm sorry that ESPN doesn't want blowouts in the playoff because we've seen it. But it's not supposed to be, what's going to give us the best TV matchup? It really should be about, I thought, at least with a 4-team playoff, who are the most deserving. Now, at the end of the day, this is going to move on, like you said, to a 12-team playoff, and this will be a moot point. But for this year, I definitely feel bad for the Florida State players.
So yesterday was a signing day. Deion had the best portal class. Get to that in a second. I will say this is the first time I remember, maybe since the Pete Carroll days, that USC's late flips and late signings were big players. Clearly, they went out to improve their defensive staff and get bigger up front. This program has been infatuated with receivers, corners, speed, and yesterday it's big. It looks like a Michigan class, and that was something to me. Many are speculating that USC is lost and they're out there without Rose. My takeaway is, no, they'll actually be better. I think their defensive changes to the staff are all positive. Veteran guys who have been NFL head coaches. What's your take on USC today? It's been a turbulent last 8, 10, 12 weeks.
It has been. We just did a big story on why they were the biggest disappointment in the whole college football season. I mean, to have what they had to go 7-5, talking to a lot of coaches, a lot of people inside the program, it was a team that really had no identity. It really had lost its way. I mean, some of the things, to talk about, kind of what you just said, one of the coaches I talked to used to work at USC, and his point was when we played them, we expected them to try to lean on us. USC has always prided itself on being physical. That team didn't even try to do it. And I think they missed on a lot of transfers. Yeah. I think the other thing that's challenging for them is they were really bad on defense, but they were also in disarray.
Yes.
They had guys who might have been productive players, but you talk to coaches who played them, it was like they didn't know what they were doing. They had guys in the wrong gap. They had guys, 3 guys in one gap. It was just a team, and this coach used it of a team of mercenaries of coming out of the portal and jumping in. And they're basically starting all over right now. It's going to be year 3. Lincoln Riley is starting all over. Who knows? I mean, I think Danton Lynn did a really good job at UCLA in year 1. Now, he's had better players at UCLA than he's probably going to have at USC.
First year, yeah.
I do like Doug Belk. He's a secondary guy. I think he'll help them.
Yeah.
He came from Houston. He's well regarded. But who knows? I mean, I think we got to see from Lincoln Riley, can he run a program and build a team? Because when he was at Oklahoma, he took over for Bob Stoops. Bob Stoops did an amazing job
there. The culture was set.
The culture was set, and Bob was a big part of that. And Lincoln did some amazing things on offense. We know he's a good offensive mind. I think the question is, how do you build a team and develop players and have a toughness? And that's something that doesn't show itself
at Oklahoma or here.
It's an issue, though, that has to be developed during the week and all year. And I think those are the challenges for a head coach that I think, we all think is really smart. But now I think it's like, all right, the stuff that other people are doing to develop Kalen DeBoer clearly knows what he's doing.
Well, there's a big difference between creating plays and creating a culture. Brandon Staley was smart. He couldn't create a culture.
Yes.
Harbaugh creates a culture within an hour everywhere he goes. I'll get to Harbaugh in a second. Quickly, Deion Sanders. I think he's great. I think the portal's built for him. And Colorado football doesn't have a huge collective. When you go talk to your sources, do you find people rooting against him?
A lot, yeah. Because
crazy.
I think they look at it and said, there's more to them. I think they see it as more style than substance.
Sure.
There's a lot of stuff that comes up because so much of it goes viral. And I think that is so different. Like a lot of people, this, a lot of people don't like different. Their initial reaction is
change.
Yeah, and they don't. And so I think there was a lot of, okay, look, yeah, there was an overreaction at the beginning when they beat TCU and they started out really fast. And then I think it pendulum back the other way where they were like a 7-on-7 team in terms of really good quarterback, good skill guys on the perimeter, nobody in the trenches. And those are the things that were really neglected. And I think that's the challenge. Now, what he did well, I thought, in the portal was he got a lot of guys on the offensive line who have played and have experience.
I think it takes 2 years in the portal.
The thing is, it's like if you're taking them, just because you've taken them 1 year, are those guys still with you?
Yeah.
He's basically bringing in all these newcomers again. Now, I think they're better offensive linemen than what he had last year. Yeah. But now it takes time to gel for these guys. At least they're going to be there in the spring and in the offseason. Last year, a lot of those guys came in post-spring, so there's no cohesiveness. And this came up a lot from coaches is like, do you have a culture there? And the answer was TBD.
1 minute left. Harbaugh in 6 months, NFL or college?
I think this is going to be NFL. I mean, I said this on our last Big Noon show. The people I talked to had said the NCAA issues were still hanging over him. And the NCAA issue that, Connor Stalions signal stealing stuff, that obviously was in the news a lot at the end of the year. The thing that came out on signing day yesterday with the NCAA basically saying, hey, you notice of allegations is from a different NCAA investigation, right? So, look, I don't think it's going to be ultimately a money thing that's going to drive him. He came close to winning a Super Bowl. I think people forget how good of an NFL head coach he was because most college guys aren't, and he has proven to be the opposite. He's tried. He's flirted with the NFL 2 years in a row.
Pete Carroll did that before he left SC. He flirted for 2 years. Dolphins were interested, so he's flirting.
Yeah, I think if it's the right fit, look, everything I'd heard is like his family liked Southern California, his wife did.
Yeah.
If it's the right fit, look, I don't know if there's anything with the Panthers. I mean, there's going to be options, I think, and especially if his team wins a national title, go try to win a Super Bowl. I know that thing has been burning for him.
Hi, everybody. Thanks for watching. Subscribe here to get the latest from the show. Also, be sure to check out more of the best clips from The Herd or go watch a few segments from other shows on FS1.